No, this is not that kind of video. The kind of video that talks about why Moldova is the least visited and poorest country in Europe. This is a video trying to explain the country as a whole, the good and the bad, from its cultures and interesting places, to taking a deeper dive into history to find out what events helped shape the country to what we see today. But most importantly, let's find out why this is a small country with a big heart, and why a trip here should be on your bucket list. Let me walk you through all of this as we explore Romania's younger brother to the east, Moldova. Now, before we look at the future, let's start with stating the obvious. The country have been having a difficult time throughout its history and is still facing issues. Ever since the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991, various factors made it easier for corruption to grow in the nation, and the country's economic problems led to the government having a hard time financing simple infrastructure, which in turn resulted in many buildings and places physically breaking down. Today Moldova is divided among its people, and it even have a state within its own land borders, even though it isn't visible on most maps. Moldova has seen 1 out of every 3 people leaving the nation over the last 30 years, and the number of students going to college has been cut in half in the last decade. But is it all bad in the country? Of course not. After all, this guy is from here, so it has to be awesome. So to find Moldova's beauty and look past the opinion that many seem to have, and also understand where they're coming from, we have to go back in time and see how this country became what we see today. A lot of Moldova's history has to do with this piece of land, a place formerly known as Bessarabia, and as you can see, most of today's Moldova was part of this area. But let's start even further back. In the 14th century, a guy named Dragos started a vassal to the Kingdom of Hungary, and Dragos is important for a few reasons. But the most interesting thing I found is a legend that says that the country of Moldova got its name from his dog, whose name was Molda. Molda drowned in a river while chasing after a giant bison. Well, it probably was an auroch, since these things were present in this part of the world, although they went extinct. And if you look at the flag of Moldova, you see one of those in the very center of it. Also, it's their national animal, so yeah, it probably was an auroch. Either way, Dragos obviously got sad about the fact of him losing his friend, so he named the river after him, and so the river got the name Moldova. This vassal state later got a new ruler named Bogdan, and he got sick and tired of being under Hungarian rule, so he took a stand for Moldova, leading to a decade-long period of fights with countries like Hungary, Wallachia and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. In the early 1500s, the powerful Ottoman Empire ruined the fun of being somewhat independent from Moldova, as it took control of the area, and yet again Moldova became a vassal state, but this time for the Ottomans. Now, being on the edge of the Ottoman Empire really put Moldova in a bad position, as it saw countless of wars, especially with another great empire, the Russian one. And the Russo-Turkish wars that was between these two giants was one of the longest series of military conflicts in European history. However, the Ottomans were on its way down as a power, while the Russians were just getting stronger. So I mentioned this place called Bessarabia. Well, in 1812, this land was like half of present-day Moldova, got taken by the Russian Empire. And this has an important part in today's Moldova and why it's so divided, which we'll cover in a bit, but for now, just remember Bessarabia. So a few years later, in 1859, in something called the Crimean War, a group of countries came together to stop Russia from gaining too much power. The Ottoman Empire, France, Britain and Sardinia. Together, they beat Russia and made them give up parts around the Black Sea, including Bessarabia. And together with a country called Wallachia, Bessarabia joined together to form a new country who got the name Romania. During World War I, Romania fought on the side of the Allies, and during the chaos of the Russian Revolution, Bessarabia declared independence from Russia for a brief period. And soon enough, Romania saw this as an opportunity to expand its territory, and in 1918 Romania simply took Bessarabia back. And for a while after, Moldova was part of Romania, and most of the people seemed happy. Not all though, as you will learn very soon. However, the Soviet Union wasn't happy at all, especially a man named Joseph Stalin, who was the leader of the country. He wanted Bessarabia back yet again. And in 1939 he made a secret deal with Germany to divide Eastern Europe called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. And the year after that, he simply asked Romania to give back Bessarabia or take it back himself. Romania gave after and handed it over. During Moldova's time as part of the Soviet Union, the government did everything they could to separate Moldovan people from the Romanians, even changing the way they wrote the language. Having used the Roman alphabet since way back, the Soviet pushed the Cyrillic alphabet on the Moldovans, trying to make them part of the nation. But Moldova isn't called the little nation with a big heart for nothing. And in the late 1980s, a movement started. This movement declared that Moldovan and Romanian people were the same, reversing the alphabet changes and eventually gaining its independence in 1991. And as I mentioned before, not everyone was happy with being part of Moldova/Romania, as some people wanted to stay part of the Soviet Union, and that formed Transnistria. Perhaps you heard of this place in the news, now you know the origin. Now, Transnistria is an interesting place, as it isn't recognized by many nations. I mean, you can't even see it on most maps, like you can with Western Sahara that we talked about in the Morocco video. Yet, there it is, with its own government, political system, military and police force. The dispute between Moldova and Transnistria eventually got bloody, but in 1992, the conflict between the two ended with a ceasefire agreement, leading to Transnistria being outside of Moldova's control, declaring itself an independent state. So after Moldova gained its independence, you might wonder why the country didn't go back to joining Romania. Well, for a few reasons actually. First of all, Romania had its own problems at the time. Then Soviet wanted the new countries to respect the current borders, and also simply because not everyone in Moldova wanted to. So where does this lead us? Why is this country getting so much bad press? And why should you still go here? And if you do, what should you even see? Well, let's look at where the country is today. Moldova is located in Eastern Europe and is landlocked, meaning it has no access to the ocean. It's surrounded by Ukraine on its east and south and its brother Romania to the west. And the separation to Romania is almost completely made up of the river Prut, which as a useless but still fun fact means fart in Swedish, at least sort of. It's on the 135th spot in the world when it comes to size, with its almost 34,000 square kilometers, making it bigger than the much more well-known country of Belgium, which we explain here. And it holds almost the same position when it comes to population rank in the world, as with its almost 2.6 million people, takes the prestigious 140th spot on that list. And speaking of lists, I'm probably in the bottom 2 when it comes to subscribers on YouTube. So if you watch this long, why not click that subscribe button below and help me climb a position or 2 on that list? And be notified when I make a new video. You can click it right now, I'll wait. You done? Okay, let's move on. The country is mostly a hilly plain that kinds of slopes from northwest to southeast, with an average height of 147 meters above sea level. The Balanesti Hill is the highest point, standing proud at 430 meters. And while the country is hilly, it has some forests, especially the middle part of Moldova, where the Kori forests grow. Also, this landscape is proven very important for one of Moldova's export, as we'll get into in just a bit. You will also find a lot of different minerals in this nation, like limestone, chalk and gypsum. And speaking of the latter, one of the largest gypsum caves in the world is in Moldova, the Emil Racovița cave, named after a well-known scientist and explorer. It has a length of about 91 kilometers and holds 20 lakes within. The cave, who also go by the names Cinderella, has a lot of spectacular rooms and should definitely be visited if possible. The weather in Moldova is decent for sure, not a vacation paradise, but not cold like the Nordics either. Usually short mild winters and long hot summers with not that much rain. And the further south you go, as with most countries, it gets both warmer and drier. And the climate, but more specifically the soil in this country, make it a great place for farming. Most of the land is covered by rich black soil named Chernosem, which is particularly good for growing things. And this shows with some of the country's major exports being wheat and sunflower seeds. However, their biggest export product by far is insulated wires. But as a side note here, I found that a lot of people would argue that Moldova's true largest export is memes. And those might not be very profitable for a country, but it sure puts it on a map worldwide. Do you recognize this guy I showed at the start? No? What about now? Yeah, this is Epic Sax Guy, or Sergei Stepanov, as his actual name is. He took the world by storm in 2010. You also have these guys. Doesn't ring a bell? What about now? They're called Ozone, and we all have been moving our feet to this track over the years. Don't you dare try to tell me anything else. Another thing that Moldova really should get credit for is wine. So, Halun Pachardian, ladies and gentlemen. Wine has a huge tradition in this country, and it goes back thousands of years. Remember I told you the landscape had something to do with their major export? It turns out Moldova's low hills, sun-drenched plains and flowing rivers really made it a perfect climate to grow grapes. Nowadays, most of its produced wine goes to Romania, but once upon a time, every second bottle of wine consumed in the entire Soviet Union was made in Moldova. Then Russia got angry, banned all trade with Moldova, and the wine export here stopped. So now this tasting wine moves to other parts of the world instead. And if you feel like testing this, you should definitely visit the Mimi Castle, one of the top wine producers and tourist destinations in Moldova. But there are more great places to visit when it comes to wine. Listen to this. There's a place called Melești Mici, At least that's how I hope you say it. Either way, it's the world's largest wine collection. And when I say that, you're probably thinking, yeah, okay, cool, they have a few bottles of wine. No, this is basically an underground city with wine. It stretches about 240 kilometers with tunnels filled with wine bottles. You can even drive cars down here. So yeah, not your ordinary wine cellar. So as you say to your brothers, Chaim Besh. So what do Moldovans eat to their wine? Well, porridge, of course. It's the best. But not this kind of porridge. This kind. Yeah, who am I kidding here? It's still porridge. And also, perhaps they don't eat this to their wine, but it is their national dish after all. And it's called mamaliga. Now, are you ready for the most mind-blowing fact about Moldova? Moldova has a shopping mall that's called Moldova. Now, if that isn't creative, I don't know what is. So now you know a little more about the least visited country in Europe, and who knows, perhaps it's becoming the most visited when you watch this video. Either way, I recommend you to take a digital trip right now and learn more about one of Moldova's neighbors. Click on the video on your screen and let's see you in that one.